We are straight up on 11:30, and I see that we have Grant Cody with us, who's the Executive Director at Oric, and it was so nice to meet you in person last week, Grant. I know you've been there quite a while now, but of course things haven't been quite as in person, have they? So it's very nice to get to meet you at the state conference. I hope everyone got to be there because of some great information. So I am going to turn it over to Grant. We are going to be talking today about wholesaling, the changes that we can perhaps expect to see there, the investigation process that Oric seemed to have really kicked up a notch. And we're going to leave lots of room for questions, Grant, because that is one thing that our members really enjoy being able to ask you. So I would like to say welcome to everybody. And thank you, Grant. Take it away.
Thanks, Helen. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm happy to be here. So as Helen mentioned, I was asked to kind of talk about some updates to our investigative process, to kind of give you a rundown of OREC projects that are going to be going on between now and the end of the year. Some of those will be going into the spring. And then obviously wholesaling, our super fun topic there. So before I dive into those, I thought I would just give 30 seconds really quick of just a financial update and a metric update, just so you guys have an idea of what's going on. Right now, the commission's closing in on $2 million in cash reserves. So that's really awesome. That's up from 317,000 a little over a year ago. So we're really happy with that. Of course, I would love to add additional regulatory staff, and I'll kind of talk about that later with some of the changes on wholesaling. But for now, we're definitely taking that aggressive financial stance of trying to increase our cash reserves and make sure that the commission is set up for long-term success. Because of course, we never want your license fees to go up, and we would like you to have a good, competent staff here for a very long time. So we're happy with that. Some really quick metrics for you right now: 95% of all of our license renewals are taking place instantly and automatically online. So that is a nice improvement from where we were in the old days of, taking weeks to have a simple license renewal even get to you in the mail. We have issued we've received 3,300 license applications in the last 7.5 months. We've actually issued 2,000 licenses in the last 8 months, and we've issued about 160 business licenses in the last 8 months. And the average processing time for all of that has been 24 hours. Typically, if something's taking longer than 24 hours, it's likely just a broker approval or the person failed to provide one of the things that's required, right? So the good news is our system will send you that automatic email notification if we're waiting for a broker approval or if you failed to upload something that we needed. Finishing up my kind of introductory pitch here. I did want to let you guys know, if you haven't looked at it yet, that we did recently publish a new commission comment on our website, and it was emailed out to every licensee in the state as well. So if you did not get that, I would just encourage you to make sure your email is up to date with us. But hopefully you'll find that to be really good information moving forward. We're going to start publishing that every quarterly, and then hopefully kind of increase the frequency from there. But I think it's good. It's got metrics in there, so we're going to keep you informed about, how many licenses are out there and what's going on quarterly from now on. And then we're also providing you with a transparent look at all of our disciplinary actions. And I know in the past that's something I had heard that the commission did a long time ago, but had not done for like the last 3 to 4 years. So happy to bring that back and use that as a learning tool. And I would just love feedback from you guys moving forward. If there's things that you'd like to see in the commission comment or topics that you'd like us to discuss, anything like that, we're more than happy to do that. Last two things, if you ever need to educate someone in your office, like new agents or anything like that, go to our website and check out the resources tab, because there's a really awesome section on there that is not used that much. It's our online portal guides. So anything that you want to know how to do, through the portal or through our website, there's a guide for that with pictures, and they're really, really simple. So I just think it's a really good tool to save you some time and make sure people in your brokerage are utilizing that. Very last item to be aware of is that our continuing education upload portal is now live. So that's been live for, I think, a little over a month and a half now. And basically now schools can instantly upload CE hours, and those CE hours immediately go into your license profile. So in addition to that, you're getting an automatic email notification every single time continuing education's been uploaded for you. So there should no longer be the need to call the school and call the commission to try to figure out where your CE hours went. Just to give you an idea of how smooth that is working for us right now, for people who attended the OAR conference, they were given an email notification within 2 hours that their CE had been recorded. So hopefully that process will continue to get better. And as I always say, just give us feedback. If there's something we can be doing better, I promise you it's not a lack of effort. So just let us know what we can do better, and I promise you we'll get after it. All right, with all that being said, let me hop into the things that we're here to discuss today. So on our investigations update, I did want to just give you, before we kind of talk about the process, again, some metrics and to let you know where do investigations stand in Oklahoma. Since January, our investigators have fielded 192 formal complaints. So I will just tell you that in the past, we would probably be dealing with those complaints for like a couple years. The good news is that is no longer the case. So of those 192 formal complaints, 46 of them came from licensees. So the vast majority are definitely coming from consumers and the public. I will tell you, we've seen a stark drop in the number of low-level complaints about advertising from one brokerage to another. So just kudos to everybody involved in the process. I think between OREC taking a more reasonable stance to correct advertising issues and brokers being more comfortable calling brokers when they see an issue, we're doing a good job as a whole of not, jamming up our resources with lower level issues like that. I did want to just talk about really quickly the difference between OAR complaints and OREC complaints, because that's definitely something our investigators see a lot. So typically speaking, if you have an issue with somebody not following NAR's code of ethics, or a code of ethics question, or really, to be honest with you, mostly an ethical related question, that's definitely something that should be going to OAR and not to OREC. If you're ever not sure whether your complaint should be filed with OREC or with OAR, I would just ask you to please give our investigations call or line a call really quick, leave a message. We'll call you back either the same day or the next day, and we'll be able to kind of save you some time to let you know what the proper place is. I think that's probably better than filing a complaint and taking the time to write all of that up, both places. But call to consult anytime. That's what we're here for. Last couple of metrics on investigations. Year to date, there's been about $90,000 in fines collected. Our investigators and some of our staff have answered about 1,600 questions related to our code and rules. And right now we've got about 15 active cases that we're getting after. So we're in a very good place. We are not in a place like we were a couple years ago where we had backlogs of cases that were taking forever to resolve. We look actually to probably have all of these cases resolved by January 1st, as many as we can anyways. So we're in a very good shape there. If you have a complaint or something like that, it should be moving through much faster than it has in the past. The biggest issues that we're seeing right now for complaints in the state of Oklahoma, we're seeing unlicensed activity and practicing with a lapsed license. So for everyone here who's a broker, I just want to reiterate to please utilize the public registry. It's available on your phone and on our website, and it takes 2 seconds to type your brokerage into the business entity search to just look at an immediate population of your license, every licensee in your brokerage. And you're going to see their license status and when they expire. I will just, let you know, we definitely have a handful of cases right now where brokers didn't realize someone in their brokerage had a lapsed license and started practicing. So we're trying to be reasonable about that, but that's definitely something we're required to prosecute unlicensed activity. So, I will just tell you again that our system is emailing everybody to let them know weeks ahead of time that their license is setting to expire, and then we increase the frequency the week of. So you're getting multiple notices if your license is going to expire. And as a managing broker, you're getting email notifications when your licensee is about to expire, I believe 24 to 48 hours ahead of time, and then when their license expires. So there's definitely a lot of effort on our part to try to stop that from happening. Our staff will even call people now every month to let them know, on top of email reminders, if they're not getting it done. So we're doing everything we can to help, avoid issues like that. We know oversight happens here and there, but just please use that resource as the best that you can. And I would just add that your brokerage is probably less likely to be fined if you do have some sort of written policies and procedures in place to account for license renewals within your brokerage, right? Show us that you're doing everything you can to make sure that people underneath you who you're supervising are having their licenses renewed on time. All right, the other things that we're seeing a lot of failure to deposit or ensure that earnest money was deposited, allowing access to properties prior to closing, failing to respond to a complaint in writing. That's always the fun one. We're happy to give extensions. We're very reasonable about that. So if you're ever involved in the complaint process, I would just really, really encourage you to file a written response. Even if it's not particularly good, I will just tell you that you're avoiding, almost an obligatory fine when you do that. And then the last thing that we're seeing a lot of is failing to make required disclosures, such as disclosing a beneficial interest. We've had a bunch of cases like that, and I'll just tell you, it's caused me to get to a place where I expect us to start publishing some short guides that look really good, have some good graphics in there on some hot topics, like when a disclosure is required, what to do when a broker dies, things like that, that we're seeing cause issues more and more. We want to create good content for you that's easier to follow than diving into the full code and rule book. All right, and then just a couple other things I want to mention. I am starting to take a look very closely at the idea of introducing more education-based discipline by the commission. I think that that's something that will benefit the public, benefit brokerages, and benefit everybody involved. So rather than always using money as a way to address a complaint that's come through that is valid, looking to kind of fix some of those things by education, and not just education at any school, but education offered directly by the commission. So this is something that's going to take some time to develop, but I think that's going to be a more common sense way to address some of the violations that we're seeing. All right, and then lastly, I'm also vetting an idea that Kansas has introduced, where they're allowing all of their licensees in their state to, upon every license renewal, select an option about, hey, when you're getting legal notices from the commission, like if there's been a complaint against your brokerage or maybe an agent in your brokerage, would you like to receive that information electronically as opposed to, by certified mail? So we're required to give you notice, legal notice, but some folks may prefer to have that electronically. So we're looking at possibly implementing that. I will tell you that right now, if there's a complaint against you, usually we're calling you or doing something in addition to just sending you something in the mail. But I like the idea of speeding that process up. If we could email you and shave off 3 or 4 days for everybody, I think that would be a good thing. So not mandatory, but something that we're looking at to give you just another option, another tool for you to have. All right, all that being said, I kind of wanted to update you on our complaint process and what that looks like right now, because we have actually changed it up to make it shorter and more streamlined. So these days, if a complaint is filed against you, your brokerage, or maybe someone in your brokerage, we're sending you that notice of complaint in the mail by certified mail. We're making an effort to call or email you that as well if we can. And then we're asking for a response in writing in 2 weeks. Like I said before, we're happy to grant extensions if time permits for you. I understand that not everybody always can get that done right away. So as long as we're on the same page and we hear from you and you're being responsive, that's going to be no big deal. After your written response is submitted to us, our investigators look at that. They gather whatever information is necessary to kind of resolve our end of it. And then we're immediately taking their investigative report and giving it to an independent attorney to look over and make a decision. Is this something that we recommend going to a hearing over, or can we solve it another way? So we have some flexibility there, which we didn't have in the past, to kind of immediately resolve something, right? If an honest mistake has been made, and we can just do something to agree to resolve that really quick, that is something that we're doing. And I hope some of you have enjoyed the benefit of kind of just being able to knock it out, get it done, and get it off your plate. I will say, we do provide that written recommendation to commissioners as well. So I want you to feel comfortable and know that commissioners are always at the end of the day going to give a thumbs up or thumbs down. Those are people in the industry. They're very reasonable. I think I don't really think I can point to a disciplinary case that's happened in the last 6 months and say, man, that was, everyone was really upset about that. That didn't end fairly. After our commissioners, get that thumbs up or thumbs down, that's kind of the end of the process for us. And then we just go with collection, and we're entering into payment agreements for anybody that wants payment agreements. So this process has gotten a lot more streamlined. Nowadays, I mean, to be honest with you, we basically want to do everything we can to just make it, here's a notice of the complaint. You tell me what you have to say about it, and then we agree upon a resolution. It's been very simple. 90% of our complaints have been resolved outside of having to go to a formal hearing. So for anyone that ever had to go through that process in the past, I hope that you're seeing an improvement. Like I said, less than 10% even go to a formal hearing now. So I think that we're maintaining our promise to kind of take a more reasonable stance and to work with people a little bit more than we did in the past. And I'll just add that moving forward, one of the things that we do not do right now that we will start doing this spring is that when you get that notice of complaint, either emailed to you or sent to you in the mail, you're also going to be getting an sheet, which we never provided in the past. And that information sheet is going to be a really quick 1 to 2 page document that just very simply tells you, here is what the process is, and here's where you are in the process. Here's what your rights are and all the information that you need to know, and here's the options that are available to you. And we're going to do that every single time. So I hope that moving forward, that will be a nice refresher and just give some more transparency to everybody, especially brokers. I want you to feel confident answering questions if that comes from someone working underneath you. And in addition to that, we're also rolling out a YouTube series. So we have a YouTube channel right now with a couple of videos on there. We're going to keep adding content and improving the content on there. And my hope is that we'll have on our website sort of embedded videos on a variety of topics. So one would be, for example, on the investigative process, a really quick 2-minute video that anybody could watch to walk them through that and make sure, you know what all of what's going on, what the process is, what your rights are. We also hope to do some additional content on a lot of our hot topics like disclosures and things like that. So that's what I'll say about investigations. When I'm done talking, happy to take any questions about that. And I hope you'll give me some feedback when we start sending that infographic out this spring with all of our complaints that come in. So the next thing I'll talk about is our OREC projects, what to expect between now and the end of the year. The first one is that we have a legislative committee that is meeting throughout October, November, and then maybe into December if necessary. I do want to thank everybody from Oakmar who took part in the code and rules work group. If you're not familiar with that, really quick, you guys had some brokers that I suggested kind of get together to give us some feedback officially on what kind of rules and regs would you like to see changed in Oklahoma. I don't know that that's something every government group goes to, their group of professionals and asks, what can we do differently legally? But I want to hear from you guys. You're in the industry. So if there are regulations we can change to improve things for you that are also good for the public, I'm all for that. So thank you for that. You guys gave us some really good content to think about. I do look forward to taking that content to this committee. The committee is going to be made up of a handful of members that were selected by OAR and by a handful of our commissioners and some of our commission staff. But like I said, this is something that's open to anybody as far as submitting things that you want reviewed. Any rules, any laws that exist, let us know. As far as the legislative committee goes, there are things in our state laws right now that actually have to change. And they're not very important. They're things that talk about eligibility for a license, like, the commission can deny you a license if you have bad moral turpitude. Stuff like that is actually required to be removed from our code and rules right now. And I won't bore you to death with the long explanation of why, but we're required by law that was passed in 2019 to remove that stuff. So while we're at it, we're looking to update all of our statutes and make some improvements. A couple things I can just really quickly rattle off that we'll be looking at will be the definition of transaction, looking at making that more narrowly tailored for what it should be. Right now, that definition, as actually was pointed out by the Code and Rules work group as well, is pretty bad. We will also be looking at some education requirements, looking at some broker license requirements in terms of, what you have to do in order to be eligible for a broker's license. We'll also be discussing physical office requirements, but I do want to tell you physical office requirements are probably unlikely to make it into this bill. I mentioned that the bill we're running is something we need to get through. And anytime you need to get something through, you do have to kind of take a middle of the road approach with that bill. The more extreme or the more controversial the language that we put in there is, the more unlikely it is to pass. So right now, I'm not aware of any state that has removed the physical office requirement. And I could argue on one level, right, that some people may not like getting rid of that. I know it'd be nice to get rid of the overhead for some folks, but it would also encourage more non-resident, licensees coming into Oklahoma, I think, using a cloud model. So we have some regulatory hurdles to jump over before we remove that requirement or look at removing that requirement. This is something that has come up with directors in every state at the Arello conference. So I'll just say that it's definitely on everyone's radar, and it will be discussed, but I really don't think that that's going to be something that changes come February. That's kind of the main things I wanted to hit on. Other than that, I'll just tell you that from the commission standpoint, we're very, very, as far as policies go with legislation, we're looking at things that are pro-inventory. What can we do to protect and increase inventory? Are there things that we can change? Same thing goes for kind of putting Oklahomans first. I think some of you have heard me talk about this before, about wanting to promote some legislative policies that really favor and put the people who live here first. We think that that is good for the public, to be working with the professional here, who's paying taxes here, who is able to be held accountable here if they're a bad actor or make a mistake or engaging in predatory behavior. It's a lot harder to regulate somebody who doesn't physically live here. So I do think you can expect to see some changes along those lines, not only this year, but moving forward, to kind of put our Oklahomans first. The next working group and project that we'll be doing this fall is our broker in charge outline group. We are going to be modifying, updating, and proposing changes to the broker in charge outline, which I've heard so many wonderful things about. I know I will just tell you as a new director, I did go through and look at examples of pretty much everything we had for outlines on the broker in charge. And I have to tell you, I don't know how you've sat through that for so long of the same stale content. So look, there's no requirement that the broker in charge outline, be only one outline. If you're a school or an education provider, you can come up with your own broker in charge outline with your own content and just get it approved by the commission. That being said, the changes that we're making to that are going to be looked at kind of, here's a model for everyone to go off of. And I know that some schools choose to just go off of that model, but we want to make that better. We want to add fresh content to that. And I would love your feedback as brokers. If you don't mind emailing myself or emailing our help desk, let us know what has been bad about the broker in charge outline, what information in there is repetitive or doesn't need to be there. We're kind of willing to do whatever we can to improve that. So I look forward to that working group getting together throughout October and November to hopefully come up with some improvements to that. And then I did want to mention as well that a project that will begin really probably in January. Well, to be honest, we're working on it now, but I don't expect it to be rolled out until late spring, maybe even the summer. We're working on rolling out an education portal on our website, which is very similar to the license portal that you guys all have now. And what that education portal will do, it'll allow us to license schools, instructors, and courses. So people will be able to kind of get those approvals and do all of those things online very simply and get the benefit of getting electronic notifications from us about when a course is expiring, when an instructor license is, no good, things like that. And I definitely think that's going to improve our education offerings and our education process and capability. So we're excited about rolling that out and kind of bringing that into the 21st century Along with that are going to come instructor and course evaluations as well. So I do want you to know that there's going to be a new process for getting feedback from all of you about the classes you're taking and the people you're taking them from, so that we can do a better job with oversight and accountability to make sure that content is correct and up to date. And we're also going to be getting out into the classroom to audit more with our staff. So education is definitely a big focus for us moving forward. And as far as working with the schools, we're looking to take more of a corrective action approach, not a, hey, we're looking to hold your feet over the fire for mistakes to content and things like that. So I hope that you'll see the commission doing a better job with education moving forward. The last working group that we have project-wise this fall is our Wholesale Rules Committee. Again, this is a group that OAR selected a handful of brokers to work with the commissioners, myself, some of our staff, and some professionals who are going to give us some feedback directly from the wholesaling world. And basically what we're going to be doing is looking at, do we need to make any changes to our code and rules? So I'll just tell you that, we're not going to make any more legislative changes this session on wholesaling. Okay, after November 1st, that is when the wholesaling law that we just passed will go into effect. And right now, what that law says is that if you're publicly marketing an equitable interest, you need to get a license. That's the biggest thing that we were seeing complaints from. But as we all know, wholesaling, it's going to evolve. People are going to find a new loophole. And I'm already aware of a couple of loopholes people are probably looking at. So, we're going to be kind of taking an intelligent approach on this. We're not going to over-regulate it right out the gate. So this working group is going to be getting together to kind of determine not, hey, should we add a whole bunch of new regulations on wholesaling, but more so, hey, do we need to make any changes to our rules so that as a broker, that's kind of my focus right now. As a broker, if you're supervising people who are coming into your brokerage now who want to wholesale, let's make sure that we're not setting you up to fail or them up to fail based on the way our regulations are contemplated. Because of course, the code and rules were written more to address residential real estate transactions than it was for wholesaling transactions. So we want to make sure that we're identifying any red flags or issues there and then addressing those with administrative rules. And it's possible that there will be administrative rules discussed, to kind of supplement what we did by legislation. I just don't anticipate that we're going to add a whole bunch. It's possible we might say, hey, while we're at it, maybe here's some advertising guidelines for wholesaling or some things like that. But for the most part, we're going to kind of crawl before we can walk. We're going to take an intelligent long-term approach and try not to over-regulate to begin with. I can tell you that a big focus for us in the beginning is going to be working with people to make sure that they are getting licensed, to help them get licensed. And I do want to remind everybody that Oklahoma is actually really the first state in the country to pass legislation with this kind of teeth in it. Most of the legislation that's been passed elsewhere is, hey, just disclose that this is wholesaling. So we're kind of the test jurisdiction, and I can tell you that we have been contacted by at least a dozen to anywhere from 12 to 15 other states who have asked us for our legislation and asked us for help. Because they're looking to do the exact same thing we've done here. So I do think you're going to see this trend of requiring a license to wholesale move throughout the rest of the country slowly, but surely over the next 2 years. And I'm, at being kind of the test dummy state, I do expect us to hit some road bumps and hit some things that we're going to be the first people to deal with. But I can just tell you that we're very, very equipped to do that. And we're open to any feedback that you have as brokers, especially if you have people in your brokerage who are wholesaling. Let us know what things you're concerned about. As far as advice from me, I did want to kind of clarify that, when we passed this legislation, we passed it in response to, yes, mostly complaints, right? And I'll just tell you, when we really looked at the people that were causing the most problems, it was non-resident wholesalers, and it was people who were doing very low-level things like not keeping a party informed or using very predatory contracts. So just by passing the legislation alone, we're actually very hopeful that a number of the non-residents and folks that are looking to kind of do this in an unlicensed and unethical way are going to pick up shop and move to another state. So as far as our regulatory arm, our focus is going to be going after unlicensed, unethical people who are purposely don't care that we change this law. Those are the people who after November 1st, should be concerned about, what's going to happen. I really don't think our licensed brokers need to have a tremendous concern as far as your liability to begin with. So a couple things I will just tell you to begin with, starting November 1st while we're working on our rules, right? I think it's really important to just keep a party informed. If you have people in your brokerage that are doing this, make sure they know what's going on. Number two, create a paper trail. Make sure that it's clear what services your brokerage is going to be providing. Make sure it's clear that they understand this is a wholesale transaction. And then other than that, I'm just going to tell you to use good judgment, and you're very unlikely to end up in a situation where you as a broker are being fined because an agent underneath you did something improperly with wholesaling. Again, we're going to be going after the things that consumers were really complaining about. And while we're doing that, we will be rolling out some administrative rules to help close the gaps. And I also think that we'll be doing some education offerings along these lines, specifically for brokers, as we get those rules more fleshed out. And I'm certainly happy to put together some type of wholesaling guide for here's what you need to know, and here's what you need to do moving forward as a broker. I think that's only fair for us to make sure we're giving you as much content as possible to make sure you're putting your correct foot forward. But please don't have anxiety that, every little thing in the world is going to be reigned over you like it was in the past, because that is certainly not our intention. So if you have things for us on the wholesaling that you'd like for us to look at, definitely contact me or contact our help desk, and we're happy to do that. So that's kind of my brief update, maybe not so brief. I appreciate you guys listening to me. I'm happy to take questions or talk about anything else that you'd like me to. And I believe Reese Baker from my office, one of our investigators, is on the line as well, so she can answer some questions. And I believe our deputy director is here as well. So happy to kick it around with you guys.
Well, that is great. Thank you, Grant. And I did like that. Use good judgment. So that's like a bit of a take on make good decisions today, people, right? So yes, we do have a couple of really good questions for you. The first one was from Jenny Duncan, and she says, any idea if the commission will review the rule on needing a broker in each location to where a managing broker can also be the broker for the branch offices? And I know that we get that comes up a lot for us here at the association with the MLS. So I'm interested to hear that one.
Sure. Yeah, that'll definitely be part of the discussion. I will say just my gut instinct, right? I'm not the end all be all of this legislative stuff. I definitely play a role in that, but I'm not ever going to tell people it's my way or the highway with what we're proposing. Jenny, I definitely think that's going to be discussed. In fact, I can promise you that'll be discussed. As far as whether that makes it into the bill, I'm going to take the under on that. Okay. For this legislative session, I think the reason I'm taking the under on that, as far as I don't think it will be introduced in this bill, or I would bet probably not, would just be that when we're talking about making that type of change, we're also talking about making changes to how branch offices work. And I think when we're talking about making that large of a change to how our regulatory framework looks like, that's probably something that's going to take a little bit longer for us to flesh out and make sure that we've got a reasonable alternative in place, right? Because as you are familiar with OREC regulations, it's kind of like yarn. You like pull one string and then, it kind of keeps going with a bunch of implications of that. So if I know that people would like to not have the overhead of having to hire an additional broker every single time. And I can tell you that one of the things that we will be discussing will be actually one of the things I've got highlighted from you guys here right now, which was the idea of maybe introducing an alternative, right? Where maybe we have a model where for every so many people, a managing broker is supervising, maybe I'm going to throw numbers out here. For more than 100 people, maybe you need a broker associate. We're open to making changes to that. I think the biggest thing to understand for us is that we want to make sure there's sufficient supervising brokers to, make sure that we're doing things the right way. But that doesn't mean we have to keep doing things the way we've always done them. So long story short, that will be discussed. I don't know that it's going to make it into the bill this round, but it is something that we are committed to helping kind of dive into to resolve, or at least to come up with some reasonable alternatives to that. And I wish that we could go faster and just wipe it out, but these things do take time. I'm sorry for that.
That's okay. That's kind of like the basic childcare rule, right, Grant? You know, if you've got over this many kids in the class, you need another teacher. So I think like this could be a thing for offices, you know. And I know that if I had 200 realtors in an office, I would be calling for broker backup, I think. That's, it's around the clock industry, isn't it? Okay, so we have got a great question from Sheila Hoppus Brown. She says, is there an update on if/when there will be a required property management certificate in order to manage properties for another?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sheila. So right now, there is actually no firm discussions about, hey, we're going to make this a requirement. The first step, you know, there are some people in the state, mostly in property management, who want there to be some type of additional hurdles, if you will, to actually managing properties. So we're going to crawl before we walk on that one, right, Sheila? So the first thing that we've done is that we have approved and worked to create a 15-hour property management course. It's kind of very similar to our broker in charge as far as it much more substantive. And the idea behind that is that you could earn a property management certificate that says, hey, look, I've completed pretty much everything I can on property management. Right now, that's totally voluntary. And I can tell you where we are in the process. We have the outline done, and it's been taught exactly one time actually over at GTAR, sort of a test run that our investigators attended. So there's some content that's still being integrated into that. I think the most recent update I had was that we were adding some case studies from actual disciplinary cases we've had. But right now and for the next year, that process is really going to be a voluntary. You can earn this certificate if you'd like to. It's not going to be a requirement that you do that. And I think it's premature for me to say that it will be a requirement moving forward. I don't know. That's really not a consensus that's been reached by the commission. So I think what we're doing is we're kind of looking at this course to see how many people are actually signing up for it, how good is the content, and then as we kind of are able to evaluate how that's going moving forward, we'll kind of make some decisions about, hey, do we want to offer this? Do we want to make it a requirement? How do we want to change this process up? But yeah, right now there's definitely no discussion about making that required. It's really just a voluntary thing that I think is a very good idea for either any managing broker or any agent that is performing property management or supervising property management activity.
Sorry, Natomi just commented, when/where will that property management course be available next?
Yeah, I'm not sure yet. We haven't announced another date that we're doing it. I will tell you that right now, you know, the commission, we haven't really offered tons of education. In fact, I'm really not much at all. That's something that we're committed to changing moving forward. To be honest, it was more of a luxury than it was a necessity for us to kind of go down that path. But now that things are going very well here and our cash reserves are built up and we're, you know, starting to look like a real organization that's performing, we are going to be introducing more education programs moving forward. So we have an education and recovery fund that can sponsor all kinds of education events. So that's something that we're discussing a lot behind closed doors right now. So we'd love to be offering more education to brokers and to everybody. So right now that course actually can be offered by anybody. All they've got to do is contact us and we have a form outline for it. So if somebody at Oakmar wants to offer that course, all you'll need is an instructor who's feels competent or confident to competently go through that material that is in the outline. And if you guys would like my help getting that going, I'm more than happy to offer it. So either to connect you with somebody who's happy to teach the course, anything like that, I'm happy to do that. But right now there is no date that I'm aware of that anyone's set to teach that course again.
Grant, I think they were teaching that at GTAR, actually, is what I remember.
Right. I know that they did teach it at GTAR. I believe it was a 2-day class, but I don't believe that they are queuing up another round of that at GTAR. I think that was sort of, let's try this, get some people in the room and, you know, kind of see how it goes. That I haven't heard of another offering of the course since then, though.
Okay, we just had a question and it made me laugh because this was me when I first started and still is me actually some days. What is GTAR? Okay, so this industry, we always talk, you know, with all these initials and letters, it's like alphabet soup. So GTAR is the Tulsa Association of Realtors. So yes, so yeah, I know we all do it. So thank you for reminding us that we need to explain that because yes, it does get confusing. Okay, so we've got another question, and I'm sorry if I say this name wrong. Vitali, they say, extremely pleased with all the changes affecting wholesaling. Any complaints or reporting regarding these activities, will it be done by way of a standard complaint ticket through ORIC going forward, or should we expect any changes?
Great question. So initially, yes, a standard complaint ticket to us. If you, as a broker, are encountering something with wholesaling that you think warrants a complaint, definitely let us know about that by formal complaint. You can also just give us a call to our investigations, hotline, and just leave us a message and report it there as well. If you feel that it's maybe not something that requires a formal complaint, maybe it's, hey, I just noticed, you know, this name is wholesaling and I looked it up on the public registry and I don't see that they have a license, something like that. I would ask for your cooperation moving forward about unlicensed activity. If you see an unlicensed wholesaler out there, don't be afraid to let us know. Again, I don't think that we're going to be November 1, you know, like the FBI kicking the door in, trying to arrest people and hold them, you know, hold their feet over the fire. I think initially, what we're going to do is work with those folks to make sure that they are getting licensed and try not to be, you know, over regulating right out of the gate, because we understand that when a law is passed, especially for someone who's not licensed and has not been paying attention, it's possible that for the first couple months into that new law that someone may not be following it correctly. So I think we'll be doing our best to use good judgment, right? If you're seeing us prosecute somebody right out of the gate after November, it probably means they're either unethical or sort of a bad actor. If they simply made an honest mistake and we can help them correct it by getting licensed very quickly, something like that, I think we're just going to be very reasonable in the very beginning. But yes, as we move on, as the months progress, we will get increasingly more, you know, fervent about how we're regulating that. And, you know, our kind of patience for that unlicensed activity will wane as we get further into the year. And we're doing everything we can to educate wholesalers out there. We've met with groups of them, and we've done some where I think we're doing a podcast and some other things. I think there will probably be an article in the Oklahoman closer to November 1st. So yeah, but for initial purposes, just like any other complaint, let us know.
Okay, that is great. You know, this is a great one from Tom McAuliffe. He says, is there a resource for what behavior exactly falls in the definition of wholesaling? You know, and that would be great for us to have, because, you know, with the loophole thing, people will be like, well, it's not really wholesaling. You know, right. So this would be great. Do you have a resource for that?
So we don't have one yet, Tom, but I think that's part of what we'll be discussing in our wholesale administrative rule working group. And, you know, from my perspective, I would, what behavior is right now with the way that the letter of the law is written, what is considered wholesaling right now is obtaining an equitable interest in a property and then marketing that equitable interest, right? So placing a property under contract and then marketing that property, or marketing the contract on that property as opposed to the property itself. That's going to be the limited scope that is deemed to be wholesaling under the way that the law is written right now. And like I said, I do think you can expect us to probably have to add new rules and maybe even change up some more language in our statutes over the next 2 years, because we are the first state to, you know, put our boots on and get to work on this issue. So we're definitely going to be paying very, very close attention to how people are manipulating and trying to get around it. At the end of the day, we're not asking people to, you know, bend over backwards here. We're just asking them, hey, if you're moving a property from point A to point B and you're not physically taking possession and owning it under that ownership exemption, then please get a license, because you're doing the same thing that real estate licensees do. And so I think that's kind of where we are with it now. And like I said, I do think that we're probably going to publish once that working group is done, something that we can give all brokers, whether that's a 4 or 5 page PDF that says, here's what you need to know about wholesaling. That gives you a more narrow scope of when you need a license for that and what rules you need to follow. That's definitely something we're going to do. We're not going to leave you high and dry and say, you know, follow some ambiguous rules and laws, and if you don't, you're in trouble. That is, I don't blame you for if you think that way, that about or worry about that, because I do believe that's how the commission operated in the past. But we're certainly committed to changing that and making sure we're not leaving you high and dry.
Awesome, thank you. I hope I'm saying this right. Dave Ballou asks, what about wholesalers listing through an entry-only broker?
Yeah, Dave. So I think I'd probably want to just clarify. So are you talking about wholesalers who put a property under contract and then go to a licensed broker and say, please put this on the MLS? I'm not seeing anything pop up on that, but
he says the wholesaler does not own the property, and can they actually list it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like that's probably more appropriate for Oakmar, which we're going to have to get into. I know Helen and I have a call scheduled to kind of discuss wholesaling, to discuss some of the gray areas like that, Dave. So the answer off the top of my head, I don't know that I want to commit to that outright right now. I think that's something we're going to have to work through a little bit. From my perspective, just shooting from the hip on that one, I think it's kind of case specific. It's a little hard for me to blanket say one way or another how that would work. The most important thing, though, is that if you're going to be publicly marketing an equitable interest in a contract, you need a license. So that, to be honest, Dave, that in a case where a wholesaler has something under contract and then wants to publicly market that, if they don't have a license, then yes, if they wanted to publicly market, they would need to get a broker to publicly market that. However, I think that's going to be something we have to address by rule, because I see that being a huge problem. Obviously, we don't want wholesalers putting properties on the MLS that they don't have approval from the homeowner to do that on, right? So this is kind of speaks to why we're needing to do these rules to kind of clean up some of the gray areas that the legislation did not address. And yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Loopholes. Yes, there's going to be loopholes pop up. And to be honest with you, that was the intention of the legislation. The good news about the legislation was it put wholesaling underneath our authority to actually do something about, whereas before we didn't have the authority to. So moving forward, we see the loopholes, then we can close them. And it'd be great if we could close all of them ahead of time, I know, but that's unfortunately just not the way that it works. When we go to the legislature and we say, hey, we need to change this, the first thing they say to me is, Grant, well, why? Show me. And I could say, well, there's a loophole they can get through here, but a legislator is going to say, well, are they? Can you show me? So right now, if we haven't seen those loopholes at work, it's a little tougher to get those additional regulations passed. I hope that makes sense.
And this is, and I have been asked already, what changes will this make to the MLS? And so we are basically going to wait until ORIC get everything in place and operational, and then we will reassess the MLS rules from that point. And that's why Grant and John here in the MLS department and I will be discussing this to kind of hopefully get one step ahead of it. But we may have to see how the dust settles first before we can make too many changes. It's kind of like chess, you think you can anticipate the next move and then all of a sudden they're over here, so we will see how it goes. Keep asking the questions. We're happy to get to it, but since we don't have a fresh question right now, Grant, can we perhaps ask one of yours, am I saying this right, Reese, who does your investigations? What kind of complaints are you seeing the most right now? What kind of violations are you seeing?
Sure. We are, like Executive Director Cody mentioned earlier, we're seeing a lot of earnest money issues as far as one party maybe not knowing who it was that was supposed to deposit the earnest money. And then at the end of the transaction, there was never any earnest money. So we're seeing a lot of that. We get a lot of complaints that just aren't our jurisdiction, but the way that our process works now, it's easy enough for us to just immediately close out a complaint and not waste any time on it. A lot of our complaints have a lot to do with just a lack of inventory. Our complaints tend to sort of go with a market trend. And right now, the consumer who isn't getting the house is always mad. And sometimes you have, 10 offers on a transaction and all 10 of those people are mad and they just assume that the licensee did something below board. So we're combating a lot of that right now. But as I said at the OAR meeting, we are making phone calls now, and a lot of times we can close out a complaint by just asking for a statement from the seller or, asking to see the contract documents. So it's a much easier process than it used to be. And David and I are happy to come into your brokerages and, answer any questions that we can, so that you guys don't, get in trouble and you don't have to file complaints that aren't necessary. We want brokers to communicate with each other. Anytime a sales associate emails us or calls us, we always point them in the direction of the brokers. So that's always the first thing that we do to try to, again, avoid those coming across our desk. So.
I'll just I'll add one more thing on the investigations that Reese said as well, is that we're actually going to be putting in front of commissioners as well one more change to that process to streamline it. So right now, just at a 30,000 foot level, commissioners are going to, generally speaking, put eyes if on a case that comes in before it actually is resolved and then after. And one of the changes that we're proposing is that basically commissioners only review a case at the very end. And that is a good thing for you because number one, they are still going to have final say. So, fellow brokers at the end of the day are going to look at things from your perspective and make a decision. But it speeds up the process for us not having to get them to approve something and then like 2 times. I don't know why that was done, to be honest with you, in the past. So that's kind of the last change that we're anticipating making to that process. So that will allow us to basically get a complaint. And I mean, if it was a clear-cut case of someone makes a mistake, we can resolve it right on the spot. And like I mentioned, we do hope to introduce more education-based disciplinary measures. I don't always want to issue somebody a fine when they're not a bad actor. They just made a mistake out of not knowing. If we can have you come down to the commission one day a month and we can knock out like a 2-hour education session. I almost think that might be worse for some people spending 2 hours with us. But, I just want you to know that we're thinking of ways to be more progressive and more reasonable and to help corrective action, take corrective action as opposed to punitive action all the time. Right. So I do think that process is getting better every day. And your feedback is something we value a lot more. I say it all the time, and I hope you get tired of hearing it because it's the truth. Like, we really need your feedback. We don't know how to get better without you telling us what we can do, right? I mean, there's only so many things we can look in the mirror and improve. So let me know what we can do better and we'll get after it.
I'll put my email in the chat bar too. If you guys ever have any investigative questions, you can email us anytime. We're happy to help.
That is great. Thank you. We'll do a last call for questions. We really appreciate Grant and Reese from ORIC coming and joining us today, and really just providing this really helpful forum for our brokers to ask some of these questions and just get a little bit of the inside track before that comes into effect. Amanda Kirkpatrick says thankful to have such great people at ORIC, and we are. I think we've really seen some great improvements. I feel like we're really able to, and definitely with the new technology you've implemented, I think we're definitely able to work more collaboratively, and that just helps everyone. So
thanks. Thank you very much for having us. And as a parting thing on the technology, I'll just let you know too, The state of Oklahoma actually just made the licensing vendor that we use. So the system that you guys have all logged into on that license portal, that has now become the state sponsored software for the whole state. So any type of occupational license that's going on in the state is now going to be using the technology that we brought to Oklahoma, which is really cool. So if you hate it, I'm sorry. I guess it's going to be, hopefully you don't have to get another license in the state for anything else, but it's cool to see that the state is kind of following after what we've done. So if you have used that, then you've already got a leg up on most of the people that live in the state of Oklahoma for doing that stuff in the future. You'll have some familiarity with what that looks like. And if we can do anything better on that, let us know. And last plug as well, as far as long-term projects, I didn't bring these up, but I think it's worth mentioning. The YouTube videos I mentioned that we're doing, that's going to be a big thing for us moving forward. We're looking at maybe doing like a monthly coffee with the commission. So some type of virtual event where it's open for everybody. We email out the link and just say, if you want to show up and have a quick online cup of coffee and tell us what's going on, or talk to us, or ask us questions, or, finally I can yell at Grant, anything like that. We're happy to do that. I think that's something you can expect. And we're also vetting a potential application, a phone application to roll out. So not this year, but the following year, we're going to be doing that major overhaul of the code and rule book, in which I am going to attempt to basically reduce the number of pages by like 35%. And we're going to reorganize it so that it's just very easy to find what you need. Business entities, boom, all the stuff I need to know right there. Disclosures, okay, everything I need to know right there. Right now, that process is all over the place. If you go through our code and rule book, it's a maze. So I want to streamline that, shorten that, and then we're looking at potentially doing a phone application that'll be query-based, meaning you can download the app, type into the search function disclosure, and every rule that would come up or regulation along the lines of disclosure will kind of pop up very easily for you to scroll through and read. So that's something we're looking at doing potentially. I'm hopeful that if we do that, that'll be kind of like a nice little, hey, I've got my phone. Maybe I'm out doing a showing, or maybe I've got a question. Okay, cool. I can look that up really quick and not have to go search through a written book. So things like that are things that are in our mind. We're really trying to make your lives better. We're really trying to give you more resources to work with, and we're really trying to put you first if you live here. So we'll keep trying, and hopefully we'll keep improving. And I appreciate you guys having us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Grant. And I hope you can see the chat. Oh, sorry, my screen completely froze up and I was on mute. So I just wanted to say, please go ahead and look at the comments, Grant. You've got a love fest going on here in the comments for Auric. That is wonderful. We do also have a comment about how often you could come back. Now, we want to do the broker recharge, these little virtual sessions about every couple of months. And I would love it if you could pop in, Grant, and give us a little update every couple of months on new developments with Auric as we go along. I think that's a great way to keep everyone all on the same page. So, yeah.
Happy to help. You anytime you want us here, Helen. Helen's awesome to work with, guys. I'll just say that. You've got a very
thank you.
We love to hear from. So if you ever want me, then we'll be here.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Well, the only other thing that I have, which is not really Auric related, Code of Ethics brokers. We have got 1,758 realtors who need to take their code of ethics by the end of the year. Otherwise, they will have their membership suspended. So I know some of them must be in some of your offices. So if Ashley is a great resource to reach out to, she's probably already contacted you, but let's cram them through the code of ethics. Hopefully they'll pick up some good stuff on the way through, and we will go from there. So perfect. Yes, Ashley says, send me your certificates. So thank you for helping us out with that, because we hate getting in December and telling everyone to watch it on New Year's Eve. We hate that. Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody. And we hope to see you again in November, if you can believe it. So thank you.